Hello and welcome. I'm Sophie.
I'm Jordan.
And welcome to Inspired by Chaos podcast. We are literally out of breath from the stairs. That was the most chaotic get together of everything, but we're here after the first week and we are barely surviving. We'll address that in a few minutes here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's start with our zone check-in. If you weren't here last week, we do a zone check-in. You need to go back and listen to episode 1 where you can learn a little bit about the zones, but we're going to start with Jordan. What zone are you in?
I want to say I'm a blend of zones.
That's okay. You're a rainbow.
Which again, we will go into more detail about. I am in the green zone because I am obviously happy to be doing this. It brings me so much joy. But I would say there's a little blue for tired.
Yeah. It was a long week.
Yeah.
It was a very long week.
Yeah. And I don't know, what do you think? Overwhelmed, yellow, blue?
There's just a lot to do.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's like our to-do list just keeps growing. And every time we check something off,
There's something new.
we add something new.
Yeah.
Which is okay. That's what literally September to November is about, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I almost said 100%. I'm going to try not to do the 100% all the time, but
we
I
keep
can't.
catching ourselves in person. We're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%. We're like, oh God, we can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
But it is funny because people come to us now and they're like, oh, you agree?
100%. I know, but I can't even, I'll try and be mindful of it, but I can't promise it's not going to happen because it's apparently.
It's in both of our vocabularies
Yeah.
now, I guess. I don't
Who we
even
are.
know. I didn't notice I said it before, to be honest.
Didn't either.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're green.
Green, blue, yellow, a little bit of everything. I
Okay.
feel like not red though.
Okay, no red.
Yeah.
That's great.
No red.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like last night I was like the bluest of blue, like when it comes to tired.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to me because Jordan and I were discussing, literally this was one of the best first weeks I've ever had for a back to school. Nothing happened to make me as tired or as overwhelmed as I was, but I think just a lot of change is hard for me. I came home last night and literally couldn't keep my eyes open.
Yeah.
Super blue. I had an hour nap. I went for all you can eat sushi. I got a coffee at 9 p.m., regrouped
Love all of that.
and stayed up kind of late to get some stuff done. And I had a good sleep and now I feel good. I feel really green. I feel like this is like natural now. The
Yeah.
first time was a lot of like anxious nerves, excitedness, and we planned it to the T and we came half an hour early. And this time we were running up the stairs 15 minutes late in, classic Sophie and Jordan fashion. But yeah, it just feels like now this is like a thing.
Yeah. No.
Which I'm very happy about.
Super excited.
So overall, we're overwhelmed, but we are surviving. And for the first week, I feel like we could be doing a lot worse.
Happily overwhelmed.
Happily overwhelmed. We have a lot of things that are happening right now that are like exciting,
Yeah.
right? So it's nothing to be worried or concerned about. It's just a lot to take in at one time, I think is where we're at.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little bit of reflection on week 1 and how we think that it went overall. It's like weird, not that we weren't seeing each other every day over the summer, because we kind of were, but
Yeah.
now we're like back to being coworkers
Yeah.
and being with each other every single day.
I know. All day, every day. No,
Any
I love
thoughts on week 1?
that. First of all, week 1, honestly, couldn't, like Sophie said, we really couldn't have asked for a better week 1.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like
Weird.
how our class just went, like how it just went and how surprisingly like natural, I feel like everyone kind of just,
They all just slid into
Mhm.
routine. It was weird.
yeah. So it was really, really good. But naturally getting into routine is a big thing, not for the kids necessarily.
Mhm.
I think for us, so that was a big change for me this year, was just going from that summer, which obviously we do every year, but it hit me harder this one
Yeah.
for some reason.
It like snuck up on us in a weird way.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like we had so much other change going on and we were maybe not so focused on going back to school. And then all of a sudden it just like hit me like a truck. Oh my gosh, I should probably start waking up at a decent time
Yeah.
or going to bed at a
Yeah.
decent
Oh my
time.
gosh, what is that?
I just can't imagine it with kids. Honestly, I don't know how you do it because I can barely get myself out of bed and you're like, yeah, I just have to get all 3 kids ready and out the door. And I'm like, I actually am still at home.
I told myself going into this year I was going to have a very structured routine at home to allow for all of these other things.
Yeah.
I want to say week 1 was not it. It did not
I
fall
felt
in.
that way too. Like I feel like usually when I go back, I'm like my meal prep is done and I'm going to bed at this time and I have this ready and whatever. And I just was like, screw it. I didn't do any of it.
Yeah.
Like the first 3 days, I think I bought my breakfast and my lunch, and that was not
You
the
also
way.
bought it for me. Thank you.
Not the way I wanted to start off the year, but I can only go up from here, I guess.
Yeah.
And I started the prep and I started whatever. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
gonna be fine. Yeah, I think we've had a lot of like turnaround, not in our classroom, which is good, but there's been like turnaround in the school and it's kind of looked great. So that part's been great.
Yeah.
Getting to know some new staff in our school. We have a new PLP teacher next door who's great. So
maybe we'll have her on at some
Yeah.
point as like a perspective from a new small class teacher. I think that would be a good.
She's wonderful.
It's not easy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think overall
I know.
week 1 was just, it was good.
Yeah.
We will obviously like, I don't know if we're chatting about that now, but like we do want to like chat about like kind of what we did and what that looked like overall and prepping and stuff. But
yeah, we'll touch on all of that on how we like prepare before the kids come in and then prepare after they come in. But I'm kind of with you. I feel like everyone just kind of came in, and I think it helps that we had students transition between like within our school internally to our program. So they were maybe a little bit familiar with us, familiar with some of the other kids. We only have one student who's just joined us. And it just feels like maybe the routines from last year carried over. We are going to like tweak certain things just to make it fit us a little bit better.
Yep.
But honestly, by Friday, it felt like we were like back in June. Like it felt like, okay, we know these kids, we understand them. So yeah, it's obviously going to take a little bit of time to get our like, oh my God, now I'm going to be the one having to
we both will today.
to get like our reinforcements and all that kind of stuff sorted. But for week 1, I really feel like it couldn't have gone better.
I know.
And we have a lot of independence this year, and that's something we really want to foster because we have a lot of kids going to high school next year. Yeah. This is going to be our biggest graduating year. We're losing 4 or 5, I don't remember. Yeah. So there's a lot to be done to prepare these kiddos to move on, to be without us. That's going to be a very sad graduation because these are the kids that started this program. They've been here for quite a while with us. So I guess we should talk about like what our focus is for week 1 and like what you feel is super important to address right out the gate.
Yeah. I think one of the things one of the first things I look for, and it seems like such a minor piece, is finding the interests of our kids, the things that motivate them, the things that drive them and make them happy. Because if I can create something to make that transition easier by giving them something they love, I just feel like, because some of these kids, first of all, the summer is hard for us. So of course it's going to be hard for them.
Yeah. It's a lot of change.
And then even our new kids who are coming in and they don't know us, and, you know, we want them to feel comfortable coming into school. So I feel like finding those like interests and things they love is just a super important piece. And then creating things to show them that we can kind of put that into it. So whether it be, you know, like a little booklet or have a picture of that thing for one of their transitions or, you know, just kind of, so I love that piece of it, finding things that they're interested in and you see it and you're like, oh, you like doing that and working it in almost immediately.
Yeah. And that builds that relationship too. Like this whole week, obviously there's a lot of things that we need to focus on, but building those relationships with the kids and showing them that like we care about what you're interested in and showing them that we notice the things that you enjoy and we try and incorporate that in our program, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's huge. And we always have a lot of, not a lot, but like a decent amount of choice time during the first week because it allows us to see like, what do they gravitate towards? Are they like, do they want to play with the trains? Do they want to go on the iPad? What are they doing on the iPad? Like phonics games or math games or whatever, like what do they like doing?
Yeah.
So it gives us that time. It like kind of brings me back to my ECE days when we do play-based learning, right?
Yeah.
We kind of let them explore with them and use that week to figure out. Routines too are big.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Even just like lining up.
Yeah.
Like I feel like some kids may have never had that skill, whereas other kids lost it over the summer. They just didn't retain it.
It's funny because I feel like it wasn't a huge focus for us to foculd on things like lining up. It never was. I think kind of end of last year, we started kind of realizing maybe we should add this into a skill. But this year, I think that's become one of our focuses. And I think it's good because they are, the group that we have are very capable of doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
we just need to show them that expectation.
Yeah. And so even like the recess, like coming in from recess before letting them come through the doors, like you need to be lined up first and having that. I just think it's such a good piece for them to have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's safety too, right? Like this is our biggest year for independence at recess. And it has taken 4 years to get to where we are now.
Yep.
But that's like that safety piece. Like I cannot not know where you are. I need to see like all of the children, do a quick little head count before they go in. So starting that week 1 is like, I feel like I'm doing a head count like 400 times a day.
I know.
Which is like so ridiculous. Like even within our school, I'm constantly, and we don't even have any big runners.
Yeah.
It's just like an anxiety of mine. I don't know.
Because if one of them's in the washroom and you're like, wait a minute.
Something's missing. You can like sense it. It's like a vibe, like a spidey sense. Like they're like, oh my gosh. Or they have like a certain vocalization and I'm like, I haven't heard that in 30 seconds. Like where
yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah. I guess like we kind of touched on routine. We touched on relationships, preferred activities, expectations, I feel like kind of fits in routine.
Yeah.
Like we talked about just like when we're doing group time or whatever, like we have specific expectations.
Yeah.
And we need to make those clear from the get-go, right? And sometimes those expectations are going to change, like, which is totally fine as, you know, behaviors change, as things arise and whatever. But it's just important to be like, this is what, actually, that's a good one to talk about. How we were talking about that you don't always have to be looking at the teacher. Do you remember we were having this conversation this week?
Yeah.
Which I totally agreed with.
Yeah.
Our teacher brought it up, but it's something that Jordan and I have discussed before, where like children who are specifically on the spectrum, but other students that have exceptionalities, they may not prefer eye contact or facing the direction where like the sound is coming from or the person's presenting. So when you're in a mainstream class and they're like, oh, like they're not paying attention, they're not looking at me. We have students that will look like they should not have heard a single word that you said, but they're probably the one that can repeat it word for word, everything that you said. So I guess our expectations within our class are different than what a mainstream class would look like. Like we would never do like a 1, 2, 3 eyes on me because that doesn't work for all of them. Right? So that's a really interesting take. And I feel like there's other things like that will come up.
Yeah. And even like I was saying, we were chatting about the raising hand and talking type of thing and how important it is to and again, this was a discussion we had with our teacher as well, how important it is to let the kids say what's on their mind, but finding a place for them to do it, like an appropriate time for them to do it. So a lot of our kids, we have a couple kids in our class right now who are pretty verbal and have a lot to say. And we want to hear all of these things.
Yeah.
But teaching them, you know, like, let me just get through this. Let me teach us all what we're going to do. And then when we're done, you can let me know all you want to say. So all of these things that you want to talk about, we will. Yeah. You know, it's not the right time or it's not like shutting it down, but let me get through this first and then have that conversation. Yeah. Because they have so many things they want to say. And
and initiating that as an educator too, like if they bring something up, they may not have that thought later. So like taking that in as an educator, being like, okay, they brought up that they went to soccer last night with their family or baseball or whatever. They may not have the tools to bring that up again later when it's appropriate. So coming to them and saying, hey, now's an appropriate time. I heard that you went to baseball with your family last night. Tell me more about that. Yeah. And I think that that's really important. We should maybe like keep something to like write down, mental note things that the kids bring up so that we can bring it up later. Time.
Yeah.
We're always brainstorming.
There you go.
That's a good idea. So one of the things we really want to talk about today, because this is our From Scratch to Success episode, where do we start when we are opening a classroom or reopening a classroom in September? Like, what is it that we begin doing? What do we need right out of the gate?
Yeah. So we spent the week leading up in our classroom, which I think we chatted about last time.
We did.
But we hadn't done it yet.
No, we were recording a week before
Yes.
our first paid day.
Yes.
The
So
conversation.
yeah. So we were in all week.
By choice.
Yeah. Just putting the classroom together, making sure it was ready for our parents and families to come in and check it out
Yeah.
because they were able to come check it out the Thursday before
Yeah.
back to school.
Mhm.
So we just wanted to make sure everything was looking okay. You know,
selfishly, we wanted it to look really put together, but we weren't quite there yet.
yeah, we tried. We tried our best. But we really touched base on getting those really important pieces, which I think are like, and these things may change, but I think like having schedules
Yeah.
was a big one for us.
Yeah.
Visual schedules are so important in,
Mhm.
I think it's special education overall, but we
Yeah.
definitely use them in our classroom.
Yeah.
I don't think we have many kids this year that are reading.
No, I don't think so. So
Yeah.
it was just like a really important piece for us. We weren't sure just because we did have some new students. So in our classroom, we have our like schedule that's like on the wall, which is like aesthetic and nice and has the words that some of the kids can recognize, I
Yeah.
think, because they've seen it, whatever. But then we also use a classroom screen, shout out classroom screen, they're great, to kind of zone in on like what's coming up next. And then each kid we start off with the exact same visual schedule just to start to see
Yes.
where they need to go from there.
Yeah.
Because obviously we individualize them all.
Yeah. And some of them start with a visual schedule and then we realize like they're not there yet.
Yes.
And we'll go down to a first then
Yeah.
or a first next then. Or it really varies. And some of them will be like, they don't really need the visual schedule
Yes.
because they can read the words and use
Mhm.
the main schedule that we have in our classroom.
Yes.
So we kind of like, we have them there so that they are available.
Yeah.
And then we adjust as needed.
Yeah, we start on like an even playing field and then we're like, okay, now from this base that we've made, how do we modify or accommodate to make it work for them? Which I think is great. And it means we have something to start with.
Yep.
And then we kind of spend these next couple weeks adapting. We'll probably change a few to a first then, but for the most part, they're all following a really similar schedule right now. And the kids actually enjoy that. It gives them a little movement break to go check their schedule. And then we incorporate that at the end of our day in our chore routine where we have like the person who sets up all the schedules for the next day.
And that's great because whatever level they're at, they're usually able to do something. So whether it be matching, we will have a schedule ready for
like
them.
a sample schedule.
And then they just have to match on the next schedule. Some of them can do it without seeing a schedule because they kind of know what our morning looks like.
Yeah.
And some of them have kind of practiced that skill over the last few years. So that's been great. And then I think we kind of do the same thing with our morning binders.
Yeah, we do.
Where we had a few new kids coming in this year and we weren't 100% sure what level they were at.
Mhm.
So we filled those morning binders.
We did, yeah. And I feel like there's like multiples of like days of the week and whatever, whether it's like matching or putting them in order or identifying what day it is, because we wanted to see this entire week and probably next week how they're completing them and which ones are independent, because that's the goal.
Yeah.
And which ones need a little bit more scaffolding assistance, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we'll pare them down.
Yeah. And morning binders are good too, I think, for us in our classroom because I feel like special education classrooms, they have the busing piece and kids are coming in at different times. They're like, it's not everyone shows up to school when the bell rings.
Yeah.
So those morning binders are great because the kids kind of know they come in, they put their stuff away, they get their morning binder and they start that.
Yeah.
And then as the other buses come in and the kids are coming in, they join. So it's not like they're sitting there not really sure what to do.
It's constant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's consistent. And honestly, it's like a good way for us to soft start. We also this year, due to how busing has worked out, we do not have a lot of debrief time at all. We do not have a lot of prep time at all. So we have to be very creative with how we can have them occupied in an independent activity so we can sit as a team and be like, what's the group plan today? What's going on? What happened on the bus? What happened at the end of the day yesterday? So that time from about 8:10 to 8:30-ish, when they're completing these morning binders with the help of one of us, it gives us a little bit of time to debrief and chat and organize and have like soft start. We put on the quiet music. We need to link our ducks because everybody asks where the ducks are from.
I know.
We
Love our
got these
ducks.
like lights from Amazon. They're like squishy lamps and they're ducks and you just like squish them to turn them on. So we have all these and they have little wobbly legs. They're so cute.
And I think one of the links when we ordered them, like it describes it as like therapeutic because the
Yeah.
kids can like squish them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of their favorite things. I remember last year when we had them, one of our kids, we'd always be like, where is that duck? And she'd be sitting at Independent with the duck sitting on like the ledge while she worked.
Set herself up to work and then turn on her little duck lamp.
Yeah.
It's like our most requested when people come in. They're like, where did you get those ducks?
Yeah.
So we need to put like an Amazon in our link tree so that
Yeah.
people can find all of our favorite stuff.
Yeah.
So morning binders for sure, visual schedules. Workstations are a big one because I
Yep.
feel like we are shifting a little bit, but workstations in our small classes are literally so important. Our independent stations, like that again, if you can teach the independent workstation skill, even though it takes a lot of like upfront legwork, it will buy you time in the long run.
And you know what I loved about setting up our workstation this year? There was a lot of discussion.
There was, and changes.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
So when we were, because we were in a little bit earlier, so we just based on last year
Yeah.
had kind of created a system for the workstations.
Mhm.
And they were great. I don't think there was anything wrong with them. But then when our teacher came in, he was like, well, I was thinking maybe we could do this year.
Mhm.
And Sophie and I were like, great, let us get it ready.
And we'll make
but
it
then
happen.
there was a little bit of like, he wanted to do this. And we were like, what if we do this? And we kind of all brainstormed together
Yeah.
to figure out what would be the best option
Yeah.
for the kids that we had and for them to then be ready for high school because we have all
Yes.
7s and 8s. So what system would work the best to kind of prepare them for that and just all of those elements. And we
Yeah.
all kind of together were like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. And I think even trying it out this first week, it's been
Yeah.
pretty successful.
And we watched it play out, right? And that's the other thing too, is like sometimes you're like, this is going to be amazing. And then it's a bit of a gong show when you see it all play out and you're like, okay, like this is too much or
Yeah,
whatever,
not what we
right?
expected.
But honestly, I think it works really well. Like obviously you're supposed to work with like a left to right system. And we weren't quite doing that last year, but we had like a to do all done. Like it was very clearly labeled. Whereas this year, I feel like just the way it's set up, we can modify it too, right? Like they're pulling out their things to complete, they're putting them in the all done, and I just feel like it works really well.
Yeah,
It's going to take time, I think, for them to figure out, how to. It's almost like that executive functioning of like getting their things and setting them up in a way that's like going to work well and
Yeah.
isn't like a huge mess.
And I also love that our workstations have their locker, which is, I think, one of the
Yes.
cutest things.
Yeah, because our kids obviously like they don't have lockers in our area. They have their cubbies and whatever, but we made sure to incorporate in our 3-tier bins, like their middle part, their locker where they can put all of their stuff, whatever they want to bring in.
Yeah, so it has a little visual of a locker because, again, they will be going to high school. And like, I don't
They're
know if
gonna
they'll
have
use
it.
a locker in high school, but if they do,
Probably.
they have that that little visual to connect that's
Yeah.
where they store their things.
Yes.
I thought
And
it-
they've started having an interest in certain things. Like even last year we were getting like a couple Pokemon cards in or like something from home that was like super random. And it's just a place for them to keep their own stuff.
Yep.
And then it doesn't get mixed up with our stuff and whatever. But no, I really like that they have like a landing
Yeah.
spot for their things.
Yeah.
Reinforcements, we need to tighten up on that, I think, because it takes a while to figure out what everybody's motivated by.
Yeah.
And how we want to structure that.
Yes, and I think that we have not.
No.
No.
Like honestly, I feel like that takes time to figure out. And we have like a full episode coming out, I think, in 2 weeks about strictly reinforcements and how we manage our reinforcements and how we differentiate our reinforcements for different goals and whatever. So we will get there.
Yeah.
But I feel like these couple weeks while we were building those relationships, we're able to at least go, okay, they're motivated by whatever, or they enjoy this, or just, I don't know. It's just going to take a lot of observation, I think, to see. So that will come with time, but it's something that we consider from the get-go.
But I do love our token boards.
I love our token boards this year. We really switched it up.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the initial idea, and this is why I think we work so well as a team.
Mhm.
The initial idea was not ours, because last year we did a classic token board and then their tokens were things that they preferred. So like a Peppa Pig or like
An
an Arsenio
Arsenio
Hall. We had a student who just had such a mature taste in everything and he enjoyed older talk shows and whatever. So we used like the hosts or some other kids like love Oreos or what else did we have?
Blippy.
Yeah, Blippy. So whatever they like, they would like work for 5 of those and then they could trade that in. But again, because we are 7 and 8 this year and because we're a life skills based program, we discussed the idea of a wallet, which is great. And then obviously Jordan and I like hit Canva right away and we're like, we can definitely make this cute. Like, let us make it cute. So now each of our kids has a little wallet on their desk. Yeah. They earn nickels for different things that they do. They can trade in the money for different coins.
So once they hit 5 nickels, they count out their 5 nickels that gets traded in for a quarter. And then I think it's like a cool, like I kind of want you to know what it looks like because it's super cute. Like it's such a good idea.
Maybe it'll be one of our teachers pay teachers things. I think it should be. Honestly.
I think it 100% should be.
There we go. We need a 100% counter in the bottom of the YouTube screen.
I think it hasn't been that bad. I think
that was your first one.
Until I watched this one.
And then it was like 30.
But yeah, they trade in for their quarter. At the end of the day, they can buy their reward, which is I think is so cute. Which again, we have to do grocery shop. We have to do all of these things that we have these things available for them.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the week, we have Fun Fridays.
Yes.
We've always had Fun Fridays. Probably the kids and our favorite day of the week.
Yeah.
Where we do movie.
Cooking usually once we get it set up.
Movie, and it's just a day of just good stuff. And so what we have done is whatever is left over after they buy the reward or the reinforcement at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whatever's left over goes on to their credit debit card.
Yeah, their own little personal visas.
Yeah.
Which are also aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. So it's on the board above their schedules. Yeah. And it has their name and it has their total. And we total it up, whatever's remaining every day. And then on Friday, they bring their Visa debit
to our movie snack station
to go and buy whether they want chips or whether they want popcorn or juice box. And they get to buy with their card.
Yeah. So and we kind of like will base the price that week depending on who's got what.
Yes.
Like, as long as we're never going to be like, sorry, popcorn's $1 today. Nobody gets popcorn. Like we'll have a look at like what's left over.
Yeah.
But I really love the idea. And for week 1, it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Like I really think it could have went worse. And I feel like it's only going to get better from now on out. Yeah. That by the end of the year, I think they're really going to be able to have that concept of money.
Yeah.
Have the concept of saving their money.
Yeah.
Like if they decide, if we say like this week on Friday, like you can buy like an ice cream sandwich or something if you have like $3.
Yeah.
Then they may say at the end of the day, I don't really need my 10 minutes of iPad today. Like I think that I'm going to save that money and get myself an ice cream sandwich on Friday, which is honestly such a good skill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I really am.
I do love it.
I feel this week has made me very excited. Even though I was so tired yesterday, I just kept thinking of all of the things that we're going to be able to do this year.
Yeah.
Like watching how independent, watching them walk in a line, just seeing the dynamic of the group we have. Yeah. I'm like, oh damn, it's going to be good.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be so good. I guess let's touch on one of the things that we are always very concerned about. And I feel like this year, especially, even before the kids arrive, we want to see how our classroom is going to fit into the school environment. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like we've brainstormed a few ideas on how we can fit them in.
Yeah.
We definitely want to like celebrate. We did our school inclusion team sign up.
Yeah.
So I feel like we'll have to do some advocacy and some celebrating of different monthly things. Like October is Disability Awareness Month. April is Autism Awareness Month. So we'll definitely plan some activities around that. Mm-hmm. But also just getting our kids involved in mainstream.
Yeah.
And teachers seem to be more willing to do that now. Not that they weren't willing, but maybe they're understanding more on how they can do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think because we've connected so much with so many teachers throughout our school, it's helped us. I know we kind of briefly touched on this last time, but it is so easy when you are in a special education classroom to hide away.
Yeah.
in your class and kind of not be involved or aware of what else is really going on.
Yeah.
And I think because we are so chatty,
No,
and
not us.
we have relationships with so many teachers in this school, it makes it easier to connect and plan and
does.
do all of these things that
Yeah.
we want to do. We haven't put anything into place, but I know we have a lot of ideas
Yes.
of things we want to see this year.
For sure.
Which like I know buddies was a big one because we
Yeah,
didn't
I'd love
have
to do that. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So I think that will be
That's a good start.
yeah.
But even just our intermediate team has been really awesome because now our class is technically an intermediate classroom. They've been really good at even just the small things like CCing us on emails and just letting us know about stuff. And we're not always going to be able to attend, or it may not always be relevant to us, but just the thought of that has been so great.
Yeah.
Or even like our phys ed teacher bringing us permission forms for any team.
Yeah.
Like we're getting permission forms for flag football and cross country and whatever, and just not having our kids written off as not being able to participate in those things.
Yeah.
Like I literally get emotional. Like yesterday, permission forms are at our door for a certain team, and I was like, "Oh my God, like you thought of us. Like you considered us because we will probably have students that will at least want to try.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's during the day, you or I will make it work.
Yeah.
To go to a practice, to do whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just to get them involved.
Yeah.
So I feel like us being so out there with our passion has paid off a little bit, and we have really receptive, amazing school team.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be honestly very, very, very good.
I think it's going to be a really good inclusive
It's
year.
going to be a good inclusive year.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about all of this stuff, and we're talking about morning binders and visual schedules, workstations, reinforcements, and all that stuff, one of the things we were talking about on the way down here is these things are going to change 8,000 times this year. We put all these things into place. We print, we laminate, we design, we do whatever, we put them into place, and they may end up in the garbage or saved for another student. But just because you make it and put the effort in, it doesn't mean you have to use it if it's not working.
Yeah. That's what we said. We said we need a bin for all of the things that we made because they're great, but maybe not useful right now.
Yeah.
That we may want to revisit later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something we had chatted about because we made so many things that we were like, oh, maybe we won't actually do that right now. We'll do this instead. And so just keeping those things for later, because it's always good to have so many things kind of
that you can just pull out.
Yeah.
Even not just for our class. Like if we have somebody from Flex or somebody from out in the school being like, I'm having this issue. Is there literally anything that you can give me? Even if it's a quick fix.
Yeah.
And we give it to them and say, you can use this for now. And maybe it's not perfect, but it's something in the meantime.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things we make are amazing, but maybe just not amazing for that kid in that moment. And that is fine, because I think we talked about trial and error for 35 minutes of our last episode, which is like literally something we preach all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. So all of the things that we're telling you about, I really hope the wallet doesn't change.
I know.
Or any of that stuff.
I hope that just continues.
Like all these things.
We did say we may need to adjust for some of our kids because maybe the coins are a little bit too advanced for them.
Yes.
So we don't know yet because we still are 4 days in.
Yeah.
But that was like, we can make small adjustments to the idea, I think, because maybe the coins aren't sticking for some of our kids, but one of our kids really loves Peppa.
Yeah.
So we'll put Peppas in the wallet.
Yeah.
Like
Change the currency.
Yeah. There'll be ways that we can still, I think, modify or engage the specific student if coins aren't really working for them.
Even if they're counting the physical coin versus the value of the coin. Yeah. Like we have some of them who knew they just had to count to 5 in order to get the bigger one, right? And then other kids who were able to count by 5 to 25 and who are already going 5, 10, 15. Oh, I don't have enough yet.
Yep.
So that's the thing when you get into a classroom like this, like it is a massive range and everything needs to be so incredibly individualized.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's talk how we prepare our students when they are leaving us, when they're moving on.
I know.
As emotional as that is.
I know. I have to say, like, transitions, as much as I love them, they can be overwhelming that last little bit of school.
It's a lot, yeah. Because legally, within our board, I don't actually know if it's an Ontario thing or within our board, legally, you are required for any child who has ASD, who's on the autism spectrum, that you need to provide a transition binder that touches on a whole bunch of different points to transition them to their next educator. But we do it for all of our kids.
Yeah.
It's just so important. I just know the importance of not only giving that information, but receiving that information, and how happy I feel when I go, okay, I know where to start with this kid, or I know what to do and what not to do to not trigger them and to start yourself off on a good foot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So transition binders, we start in May or June.
What is a transition binder?
We'll go right back to the beginning. We start off with a student profile usually. So things that they like, things they don't like, things that trigger them, things they like to work for. We include a lot of photos in ours as well. And we do ours digitally now. So this used to be like a total, like, not paper and pencil, but like a paper, like hands-on binder that would actually be physically handed to the next person.
Yeah. Which we actually still do.
Yes.
We do. We don't have to.
We like to give a hard copy. I don't know. I'm like a hard copy person.
Yep.
Sometimes I just like to have the paper in front of me.
Yeah.
Jordan and I obviously make all of our stuff. So we take all the things that are required and then we put it into something that looks a lot better in our opinion. So we spend a hefty amount of time making it look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say each one takes at least an hour.
Yeah. Of like full focus.
Yeah.
But can take days because you don't usually just have an hour to sit down and do them.
No, especially not like this year is going to be rough having with the amount of transition binders that we have and the lack of prep time that we have due to busing. It's definitely going to be, we're going to have to start probably in like April.
Well, we said this year, not that we didn't know the expectations, but it kind of slipped away from us until the end.
Yeah.
That was something we wanted to start doing earlier so that we made the templates we love, which is great. So now it'll just be easy to kind of put their info in, which will be nice. But we did say we wanted to start that well in advance this year.
Yeah. And we put like everything in there, like the way that they communicate, like their receptive language, expressive language, things that they're awesome at.
Yeah. Toileting.
Things that need work, like things that they can do independently, not independently. And we don't just do this for the kids that are leaving us, like leaving our school.
Yeah. We
transition kids to high school all the time, especially in our 7-8 program. But we also do it for kids that are transitioning internally within our school.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just easier than setting somebody up without all the information that they require.
Yeah.
And then they're like running back down being like, oh my gosh, like I did something and now they're upset and I don't understand and whatever. Whereas if they knew all the triggers in advance before working with that student,
they would know to avoid certain things.
Exactly. You know to avoid it, right? And sometimes just you don't have time for all of that verbal interaction within a day. Or again, if we're on a bus before and after school, we cannot answer all of those questions all the time. We're not there the same hours that the other staff are, right?
Yeah. And like an example of that is like we had a kid who came to us last year just for the final year and hated being touched.
Yeah.
If we hadn't had some kind of documentation come to us to be like, don't touch him. And I mean, like, you'd go behind him and be like, good job.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Or brush past this individual accidentally.
Yeah.
Like that couldn't happen either. So if we had no idea that personal space was such a like issue, we could have really like
upset him very quickly
and had like a poor relationship from the start. But because we received a very detailed transition binder, we were able to go, okay, this student is starting on Monday. And we know this, and this we cannot do.
Yeah.
And it's also important too, because then our kids knew not to do that too. Like he's probably not going to want a high five. He's probably not going to want a fist bump, and just set that expectation from the get-go.
Yep.
So I feel like that is incredibly important.
Yep.
And is going to be a big part of our year this year. So as we're doing it, we'll talk you guys through it.
Yeah.
But it is something to consider. If you are receiving a student with a diagnosis or passing along a student with a diagnosis, whether or not it's required, I think it's just
helpful.
It's so helpful. And if you really want to set the student up for success, everything is in the student's best interest, right? So I just feel like that is very top priority to me. And I even put like my email, we put both of our emails and said, you can call or email us whenever.
Yep.
Like just because they leave our program doesn't mean that we're like, wash your hands of them. Like we want to be part of their continued success, right?
Yeah. For sure. brain fart. I was going to say something. I'm like, Jordan, keep it to the end. Whatever. It's okay. I'll think about it later.
It's been one of those days, guys. I actually feel like we're both like so like exhausted that we're just like.
I think we were talking about that. I said yesterday I had a good, I thought it was hilarious because I spelt my, both like my older kids can spell at home. And I was like, I just need to have a shower and a CRY. And and my 12-year-old goes, why do you need to cry? And I'm like, oh yeah. Honestly, I don't know. I just need a little cry. Like,
there's something so overwhelming about the first week that like, I don't know if people talk about it enough. Because we had a conversation last night where I was feeling so anxious and overwhelmed. And then we were texting because even if we're not here yapping, we're sending voice notes back and forth, or we actually talk on the phone on the way to work. Like, I'm shocked that we even have a voice to record this podcast, to be honest. Like, I just feel like we're talking all the time.
And it's like a play-by-play. Okay, so I'm getting up right now. My hair is done. I'm going to get in the car. I'll go to Timmy's. I will.
Yeah, it's literally constant. But we were talking last night. I can't even remember. I think we were voice noting while I was out for dinner. Yeah. And we both were like, nothing happened. No. Nothing went wrong. Why
do we feel this way?
Everything actually went the best it could possibly go. Why are we both so tired and emotional?
Yeah.
It's the change. It's the routine. Yeah. It is like, it's just everything all in one. And it's hard to explain that to somebody else. Yeah. Like, we both have very supportive partners, but I don't think that they'll ever understand the level of overstimulation that comes with working in a classroom like this. And we love it and we thrive and we are inspired by chaos. We literally, we thrive on it.
Yeah.
But there is something about that letdown. And I find, I don't know about you, I get sick at Christmas break. Mm-hmm. I get sick at March break. And I get sick in June.
Yep. Every single time.
You power through. And then when your body finally decides to take a break, it's like, well, now you're going to get the flu. And it happens. I thought it was happening to you last night. I was so concerned.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was so not feeling good last night. And like, I feel great this morning. So the only thing I can think of is just like how anxious and overwhelmed I was just from, and it's just so hard to explain because
it's like the letdown of the week.
Yeah.
Right?
Like everything was so good, but I think maybe that's what it was. I was just so excited and like,
you have to be on all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think like if you're not an educator, like you might not understand that we're honest about our zones. We're honest about how we're feeling. We're literally going so off topic here, but it's like, we need to talk about this because this week was like a lot.
Yeah.
You like get into work and sometimes it's like a different persona. Like you kind of have to leave that at the door and be like, okay, I'm exhausted. I'm going to be honest about that. But you have to be on because when it comes to safety and when it comes to, I don't know, just putting on the show, really, like you've got to be on. You've got to have your A game.
Yeah. There's no room. You can have personal things going on or whatever's going on, but there's really no room for you to not be fully present.
No.
At your job.
No.
In this
like
field.
You are always like 100% on. And I saw something recently, I don't know where, but it says like on average, kids ask like 200 questions a day. So you multiply that by how many kids are in the classroom and not all of them are verbal, but they have a lot to chat about too. Even our students who are nonverbal, like they will vocalize, they will do whatever. So it is a lot of verbal stimulation, which we are so happy when our kids are talking. We are so happy when our kids are communicating.
Yeah.
But by the end of the week, it's like, holy cow, I need to drive home in silence.
Yeah.
I need to go home and sometimes I just close. I don't even have to sleep. I just need to sit by myself in silence and be like, I need to recharge my batteries a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm really excited because this week we are starting our first kind of Q&A session. So if you go over to our Instagram, Inspired by Chaos, and you go into our link tree, there's a Google form there. You can fill out and submit questions where we will kind of work through them together. You can also submit topic suggestions and just leave comments if you want or make fun of us for things that we say. We will take whatever you want as long as you engage with us. And we have a question this week. I'm very excited. So you submit as many as you want because we will do as many as we can.
Yeah. And reminder, we will not have all the answers, but the goal here is to work through them with you.
Yeah.
Maybe give ideas that maybe you haven't thought of or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Or if someone's listening and again, they say, I've worked in a similar situation. This is what we did.
Yeah.
Email us that.
Yes.
But we just want a community of like helping.
We just want to work as a team. Like
Yeah.
it's not easy. Let's do it together as a big group. So our question that we got this week was, how do you regulate a nonverbal ODD student with autism without triggering and disturbing the rest of the student population or in like a PLP classroom, like how we work? It's difficult.
Yep.
Sometimes dealing with behaviors does disturb the class.
Yeah.
Is that ideal? No.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about a couple ways that we've kind of dealt with this in our classroom before.
Yeah. Before. We deal with it all the time.
We actually deal with it currently. We deal with it is something that you kind of always have to deal with is how do you like not silently deal with the behavior, but how do you deal with it in a way that's not disturbing? So this is a really good question. One thing that we are trying this year, which I like, we have done it in the past, but the way that our classroom is currently set up, we have a separate calming area for specific students.
Mm-hmm.
So they always have access to any area in the room that they want, but they're obviously encouraged to utilize areas that have a little bit more personal space because that's something that they require to regulate themselves.
Yeah.
So it's just like a separate kind of space, but then there's also like a group space. So if they want to have some chill time and socialize, sure, that's fine. But they're definitely encouraged when they need to regulate to use that separate space.
And we had last year, so again, it's something we kind of changed for this year because this specific student did have their own space last year. However, it was kind of, because of the way our room was set up, it was still in a space where people had to walk by and not really a place for them to fully like unwind by themselves.
And it wasn't clearly defined either.
No.
Like it was just kind of like a beanbag in a weird spot.
Yes. So that also meant if they were not regulated at that moment, if someone walked by, they may have gotten a kick or something like that. So we definitely looked at that setting up for this year, knowing that student was returning.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how we can still have them in the class where they don't necessarily need to leave to our sensory room. Mm-hmm. They can remain in the class, but still have a space of their own.
Yeah. And clearly defining that space. So like even now we've been using those foam interlocking mats to kind of define different spaces within our classroom. And so we've used those mats to like visually define like this is your space and nobody is going to walk past or be in this space because this is for you to regulate. Yeah. So I feel like that's step one.
Yeah.
Clear visuals.
Yep.
Very, very clear visuals. Visuals on what comes next. Visuals on what has just happened and is all done. Visuals on what's going to happen when the timer goes off.
And timers.
Yes.
Timers. Timers are so useful. And that doesn't mean a timer is useful the very first time you introduce it to the child.
No, it's not going to be.
It's not going to be.
No.
So timers are useful when they are consistent and become familiar. They can't be, oh, well, I tried a timer, it didn't work out.
And when the time is respected.
Yeah.
So this is something that we have preached time and time again.
Because it did
Yes.
come up as a little bit of an issue.
It has been an issue in the past.
Mm-hmm.
If you want that child to respect your time, so their 10 minutes with the group, then you must respect their 5 minutes of break. Mm-hmm. There is no interrupting. There is no pausing that timer unless, I don't know, for
fire
God
drill?
knows what reasons. I don't know. Like if you want them to respect that timer and respect your time, respect their time.
Yeah. Because
they deserve that break. They've earned it.
Yeah. Because when they have that timer, they know when and there's so many different kinds of timers you can use, but our student last year and so far this year has used a sand timer. Mm-hmm. And we were verbally reminding him,
like a lot of prompts.
Because if he didn't look up at the timer, then he wouldn't have known it was done.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's funny because when he's working, he's pretty on top of it.
Yes, right? But when it's break time, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But it was as soon as that timer would go when he was done working, timer's all done. And he would get up and go. Yeah. And then, so we then we would be the ones to prompt it when he was on his break. But then as soon as the timer was done, timer's all done. Yeah. And he knew to come back. Mm-hmm. So it was such a good system and timers, and it didn't work right away. We had to do it.
It took a long time. Like these things take time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may have to pivot them and whatever. So things we covered so far: separate calming area, defining a specific space for them,
visuals,
clear visuals. Let's chat briefly about yellow zone skills.
Yeah.
So yellow zone, again, go back to our first episode, have a peek at what the zones of regulation are, and you'll understand a little bit better. But when they are frustrated, when they're feeling anxious, when they have not peaked escalation yet, you got to intervene then.
Yep.
Those skills like deep breathing and hand squeezes, they may be too far gone.
Yeah.
By the time there is a full escalation.
The kids that we work with require us to teach them techniques to regulate themselves. They don't always know what they need to be able to do.
It doesn't always come naturally.
Yeah. So that's such an important, I think, piece for both of us in our classroom is taking those moments when we know they're frustrated, but not yet completely escalated.
Yeah.
To teach them to take deep breaths.
Yeah.
To squeeze. The amount of squeezing we do. We squeeze hands and it literally, I'll show you if you're watching the video.
Yes.
It's literally like you're squeezing
finger hugs.
finger. Yeah. And you'll go through each finger
and like squeeze individually. And it's something that they enjoy and can learn to communicate in the way that they communicate. But those yellow zone interventions, however you want to call them, game changing.
Yeah.
Game changing. And talking about those things when they're in the green zone, like, oh, do you remember like when you were feeling this way and we did this and then you felt this way?
Yeah.
Like walk them through it, right?
But also recognizing when they're in that yellow zone before they get to that red piece, being able to acknowledge they're not ready to be doing what you're asking of them right now. So if they are really having a hard time and let's say they're doing a piece of work that they really don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, take a break.
Yeah.
Come back and you can do it later. There's this piece I find in some situations where people don't want them to get away. And if you are listening, you're not going to see me doing those quotations, but get away with not completing their work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that here. They need sometimes a little bit of space to regroup, hand squeeze, breathe, and then come back to do what they need to do because maybe they're getting frustrated.
Yeah.
Maybe who knows what's going on for them, but in that moment, they're just not able to focus on what you're asking of them.
No, the goal, once they are escalated, the goal is not to complete the task at that point.
Yeah.
The goal is to get regulated again.
Yeah.
You kind of have to separate the like power that you feel of like, oh, this is so frustrating. They're supposed to be doing this task. That goes away. The second they are escalated, the goal is no longer the work or task at hand. The goal is regulating.
Yeah.
And then once they are regulated, you follow through with that task.
Yeah.
And then have those conversations and reward accordingly.
Yeah.
I think.
And if it doesn't end up that they get that task done, that's okay. Maybe they don't earn their token for that.
And that's a conversation you have when they're regulated at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Right? The follow through is very important, but the follow through doesn't happen immediately. The follow through does not happen when they are in the red zone. The follow through comes later.
Yep.
Yeah, we feel very strongly about that. If you
very
can't
strongly,
tell.
We'll probably talk about it a little bit more throughout the episodes.
There'll be a lot on that.
Yeah.
One of the big things too, individualizing their schedules and scaffolding independence. So one of the things we were talking about for a student is a 5 and 5 schedule. The student is very active, needs a lot of movement, has a hard time sitting. So they are strictly on a 5-minute schedule. And again, this is done with a lot of prompting. It's like 5 minutes with the group, 5 minutes break, 5 minutes with the group. They do not have to follow the group plan if that does not work for them.
Yep.
They're obviously encouraged to be involved in a way, but they're not doing exactly what everyone else is doing. And that's totally fine. And that might be explained to the kids. Well, why are they doing that right now? Because this is what they need to be successful.
And it's funny because that student completes so much work.
Yeah, because it is presented in a way that works for them.
Yeah.
And we talked about scaffolding independence as well. So we have been obviously using sand timers and verbal prompts, but that is something we will be moving away from. We have been toying with the idea of a vibrating timer, which does not disturb the rest of the class, but does, give them that cue that my time is now done. It's time to give my 5 minutes with my group and with my educators, and we'll set that again. And when that goes off, they can independently move back to their own spot. So that's like the scaffolding independence piece where we no longer have to be like, work is all done, break is all done, work time. And I think that that's always what you need to look forward to as the goal. What is the next step to make this more independent in a way that is less disruptive to the class?
And I do just want to touch base quickly while we're still chatting about, because it still does tie into that Q&A part.
Yeah.
A sensory room. I know we talked briefly about defining an area or space in the classroom to try and keep them inside, but there's also most classrooms, if it's not directly in the room, it's usually somewhere close by, has some kind of sensory space for students. And that should always be available
Yeah.
if a student needs it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do in our classroom, for one student specifically, but is opened for anybody, is we create a space in our sensory room that is like super exciting for them.
Yeah.
Not like to a point where it's going to get them to like heightened
overexcited.
or
Heightened.
not like that, but we know it's things that they really like.
Yeah.
So we've created a space where it's not a bad thing if you need to go in the sensory room and calm your body. It's not a bad thing because you get to go look at these pictures that you love. And I think creating that space and making it available when it's not just at a point where they're escalated.
No, you don't want that negative connotation with the sensory room. That's not the goal.
Yeah. So that's also a big piece for us, is just creating an environment that they enjoy being in, where they don't have toys necessarily or things like that, but maybe they have a beanbag and some sensory stuff and some pictures that they get to look at. And that's a good calming place for them to be when they're not able to be in the room in that moment.
Yeah. And we've had students start their day in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 2 or 3 different students that, for one, they like the specific kind of music that wasn't our morning music. So they came in the morning, we put that music on as a soft start in the sensory room with a 5-minute timer, and then they just joined Morning Binder after. And you have to pick your battles. That is not a big fight. She was so much more successful after having that 5 minutes. Yeah. Or we had a student who really loves nails and makeup and whatever. So we had that stuff available in her space and photos of beautiful nails and whatever to entice her to spend time in there where we knew she needed to be to regulate, because they were not able to make that decision independently that I need to spend some time in the calming space. So enticing them with things that are preferred and making it a positive experience for them, right?
We are hoping some of these things.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried them or haven't really thought of them that way, may be helpful.
It's a different perspective, you know? Yeah. And we're always open. Again, we were going to touch on trial and error again. Don't be afraid to modify. Like, some of our things are not going to work for your kids, and some ideas that you have may work even better for our kids that we haven't tried either.
Yep.
So yeah, any questions that you have, please send them in. As you can see, like, it's the most passionate we get when we get to like troubleshoot stuff like this. It is exactly what we want to be doing. So please go to our link tree in our bio on Inspired by Chaos, on Inspired by Chaos Pod on Instagram, and put in your questions or your topic suggestions. We've got some really good topic suggestions too for future episodes, and we are very excited about that. So thank you for your question.
Okay.
All right. We have sadly come to the end of episode 2 from Scratch to Success. We hope you guys got some really good information about starting up your class or coming back after the summer. We're going to do a little wrap up here. And this is something that's also tied into my guided journal, which I'm going to plug again. We're going to talk about something that made us laugh this week and something that warmed our heart this week. And then we'll kind of do our conclusion and where you can find us. So, Miss Fine, can you think of anything that made you laugh or that warmed your heart this week? I can also go first if you can.
Maybe you go first.
I'll
See,
go first.
The fun thing about this is that Sophie does a lot of the planning for what we talk about. So she may have time to think about it.
Yes, I did have time to think about it. That's okay. I'll start.
Okay, you go.
I had a couple like funny things that happened this week, but one of them, when I was on the bus, one of the students that we don't directly work with asked if I had a dog. And I was like, yeah, she's like my baby. She's like my child. I love her. And I showed a photo of her, and she's like a little black dog with really curly, like frizzy hair. And she's kind of crazy looking. I love her. She's like 14. Her name's Lola. And I was like, yeah, let me show you. So I show him a photo, and he goes, oh my God, she looks just like you. And it like took me everything. I was like, thank you. And he's like, it's the hair. It's really frizzy. And I was like, thanks so much.
Oh,
but I love moments like that, because it just, if you've had a rough day and that comes at the end of the day, there's nothing better.
Yeah.
And it's a story to tell when you go home too. Something that warmed my heart this week. I think I was really happy to see how excited the kids were to be back. And just connecting with some of the new students too was amazing. Getting like little hugs here and there from kids that you never got that from before. It just shows that they're excited to be with you. They feel good energy from you. And also something that warmed my heart is how many people have reached out since releasing episode 1, and how many people seem excited about listening and, took the time out of their day to watch on YouTube or listen on Spotify. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
It was so heartwarming that people were like, oh, like I really liked when you said this. Or when people say that they feel like they're just hanging out with friends. Like that to me is the ultimate compliment, because that's what we hope for this to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything?
Okay, so because you brought up that,
Yeah.
it kind of connection.
Connection.
You're supposed to say good connection.
Oh, good connection, Miss Fine.
A friend reached out to talk about the podcast after she had watched it, and honestly, it made me feel so good. I think it was like a 3-minute voice note, just congratulating us, and just telling, I guess, like, I can't even describe all of the things. There were so many nice things that were said in it, and it just made me feel so good. We want this to be exactly what she kind of said. And so to have somebody come out and be like, I watched it, I loved it. Also,
Yeah.
okay, adding to that, our custodian.
Yeah.
Our custodian is so proud of us.
Yes, and that matters.
It really
Thank you, Tony.
He's amazing. And like through the hallway was like, I watched it.
Yes.
I watched it, and just had so many nice things to say.
Feeling the support from people around us is 10 out of 10.
It's been amazing.
It's been really good.
I'm trying to think. I probably
Anything that
laughed
made
a
you
billion
laugh?
times, and now I'm like
I know.
blanking.
Something is telling me that we're going to have a lot to laugh about this week coming up.
I know.
So I feel like by our next episode, you'll have something
I'll think of
really
a laughable
funny.
moment.
Or she'll think of something funny and she'll hop on stories and tell us about it.
Yeah, right? I'm sure there was.
But there's also not a lot of time to like think or breathe. That's why I feel like that moment came to me on the bus, because I was like at the end of the day decompressing, and then I was like, what a bizarre thing to say. But I was very happy that that was shared with me.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we have come to the end. Jordan, where can we find you on Instagram?
Jordan Fine Photography.
And
oh, I thought we were going to do like and you can find us.
no, and where else can we find you? Now that it's out.
Inspired by Studios.
This is our second last time filming in this studio, and then we will have a studio space of our own. We are so excited. That is all Jordan, but you will be with us for the entire ride, which is incredible. So there's more to come on that. And you can find me at Inclusive Inspirations. That is my like spec ed blog kind of page. Or you can find us at Inspired by Chaos Pod. And please go on there, go on our link tree, take a peek. More surprises to come in the next couple weeks. Really exciting things.
And share.
And share, please.
Share with your educator friends.
Even if you feel like it doesn't resonate with you, you might just want to listen to us yap, or you might know someone that might enjoy watching it. And we appreciate and see every single share.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 2 from Scratch to Success, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.